we're going to go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this information session about the Institute for Integrative Conservation's Conservation Research Program, entitled What I Wish I Had Known. My name is Erica Garut, and I'm the Director of Research at the Institute for Integrative Conservation, or the IIC. You're going to hear us say IIC a lot during this session. And I'm the main point of contact for students who are interested in working alongside partners in applied research through the IIC. In today's information session, we're going to highlight the various ways that students can engage in applied conservation research at the IIC. We're going to focus specifically on the year-long conservation research program and the application process, which actually begins tomorrow for the next year-long program that begins in January of 2025. And most importantly, you will have a chance to hear from some current William & Mary students who are involved in the year-long program about their experience working alongside partners on conservation research projects. I've asked them to be honest and give you honest feedback about their experiences, both the amazing opportunities they've had, but also the challenges they've had in the program, so that you can assess whether this program is a good fit for you. And I've also asked them to reflect on what they wish they had known a year ago when they were in your position, considering whether this program is a good fit for them, thinking about how it aligns with their academic and career goals. Today's session is being recorded so that we can upload this video to the IIC's YouTube site for the students that can't make the session, to make sure that they get to hear the insights from our student panelists. Throughout the session, feel free to come and go quietly. I know some of you have classes or have other things you need to go to. That's totally fine. And feel free to get up and grab more pizza or drinks throughout the session, really anything. Pretty important. We will have plenty of time at the end for you to ask me questions about the program or the application. And you'll also have time to ask the panelists questions as a panel. And then at the very end, you'll have an opportunity to ask them individual questions. So throughout the introduction and the panel questions, please write down your questions so that you can ask them at the very end, or so you can ask our panelists at the very end. So we're all here because we recognize the inextricable link between nature and human well-being. And in the face of rapid environmental changes like biodiversity loss, climate change, the extinction crisis, pollution and deforestation, we recognize that there's an urgent need to identify solutions to ensure the resilience of both people and nature. I'm really excited about that video that took me a while today. These conservation challenges are complex. So we recognize that we need to build a diverse community that can blend expertise across disciplines, sectors, and knowledge systems, develop solutions that ensure both people and nature thrive in a changing environment. The Institute for Integrative Conservation, or the IIC, was established in January of 2020, thanks to a generous donation from an alumna who saw an opportunity to match the interdisciplinary expertise we have here at William & Mary with the needs of our conservation partners. The mission of the IIC is to cultivate an inclusive community of creative leaders to deliver integrative solutions to the world's most pressing conservation challenges. So what does that mean? Well, we aim to build bridges across disciplines, sectors, and among communities, so that together we can advance integrative solutions to the most pressing challenges that we all face. And we do this first by building a community across William & Mary of faculty and students from the various departments and schools. We then build out that community with alumni and parents and community members, as well as a diverse network of external conservation partners who all can work together to advance these solutions. There are many ways that students can get involved in this IIC community. We have a major and a minor in integrative conservation. We have lots of events, and we have a student leadership council, and we have many opportunities for students to work directly with external conservation partners in this broader community to work on applied conservation research, which is really the focus of today's session. The objectives of the conservation research program are to first support our external conservation partners with applied research needed to advance conservation solutions. We want the research that students are doing to actually have impact, to support the partners with addressing the challenges that they're facing in order to advance conservation solutions. So we want to do research that has impact. We want students to apply what they're learning in their classes that help these partners solve the challenges that they face. And then second, through participation on collaborative and applied research with external partners, we aim to nurture a diverse generation of innovative, principled, compassionate, and self-aware leaders who are prepared to advance integrative and just conservation solutions during their time here at William & Mary and beyond their time here at William & Mary. So our aim is really through this firsthand experience, working alongside external conservation partners and faculty mentors on projects that are designed to address real-world conservation challenges. We're hoping that students will learn about the realities of conducting applied research, the realities of conservation, and they'll learn about different career paths in the field of conservation. And most importantly, students then have an opportunity to reflect on their own role in conservation, their own unique contributions to the field, and the ways in which they can build up their leadership skills and be leaders in conservation, regardless of of the career path they decide to pursue. We have a unique research model at the IIC. Because we want our projects to be applied by partners and we want the projects to have impact, we start by asking the conservation partners in our diverse network of partners to propose challenges that they would like students with support from faculty to address through our research. So each year, we send out a call for proposals and receive proposals from a diversity of conservation partners. This includes non-governmental organizations, tribal governments, other government agencies, both at the local level and national level, Indigenous peoples and local communities, corporations, really anyone that shares the same mission of finding ways that we can conserve nature and support its benefits to human well-being. Once we identify those challenges from our external partners, we build an interdisciplinary teams of students and faculty who can work alongside those partners to address that challenge in an applied research project. So with each project, we craft a team that involves at least one William & Mary student, potentially another student from a local academic institution in the area where the research is being done, as well as at least one William & Mary faculty and potentially faculty from the local academic institution, as well as a conservation partner. So by design, the goal is to bring together students, faculty, and partners who all bring unique expertise to the project so they can work together on an applied project that will meet. And then finally, because we're the Institute for Integrative Conservation, our goal is in each one of these projects that we apply expertise from across sectors and disciplines and from diverse communities to better understand the challenge that the partners proposed and to inform our research. And so from this integrative lens, we hope that we can help the partners better understand the challenge and design solutions that balance both conservation, biodiversity, as well as promotion of human well-being. In all of our projects, the students really are the lead researchers. So what does this mean? With support and guidance from faculty mentors and conservation partners, the students really are the ones driving forward the research and are the ones ultimately responsible for producing a research deliverable that's useful for that partner. So what does it mean to be the lead student researcher on a CRP project? It means that you as the lead student researcher are the one organizing and leading regular meetings with your conservation partner and your faculty mentors as well as your fellow students. At the beginning of the program, those meetings are focused on understanding the challenge and designing a project. Over the summer and the fall, those meetings entail getting feedback or asking questions of your partners and faculty mentors about the direction of your work. And in the fall, it's mostly students giving feedback and presenting some of their findings to get feedback as they complete. The students as the lead researchers are responsible for working alongside the partners with support from their faculty mentors to co-design a project that's going to be useful for that partner. And to make sure that they keep that lens throughout the program, to make sure that the research continues to be helpful and applied and useful. Students are responsible for completing the research over the summer. They're the ones ultimately responsible for making sure that the work is done, as well as completing a proposal, a written report, and an oral presentation. Students are also responsible for setting meeting deadlines and communicating often with their partners, as well as representing themselves and William & Mary professionally. Oftentimes, students also present their research in professional conferences or to the partnering organizations. So it's important that as lead researchers, they're presenting themselves professional and respectful. Each of the project's deliverables are designed by the students and the faculty mentors and the conservation partners early in the spring. But because these are real-world challenges that the partners have proposed, almost all of the projects evolve throughout the program. You'll hear that from the panelists today. So it's important that as lead researchers, you're adapting to the changes in the programs as project as needed to make sure that you're still producing something that's useful, despite changes in the direction of the project. And through this experience as a lead researcher, you have an incredible opportunity to not only build your research skills, but also your professional skills, especially your project management skills. You have an opportunity to contribute to a real-world conservation solution, and again, have the firsthand experience in a career in conservation. So you have a lot of opportunities to explore those career opportunities for yourself and also to network. We have various formats for students to work with partners on applied projects. We have the year-long program, which is the focus of today's session, but we also have a semester-long GIS lab, where students who have taken at least a GIS 201 Intro to GIS course or an equivalent course and work alongside partners as part of a lab to complete a research project that either has a GIS or remote sensing or a data science component. We open up the application period before each semester, so we'll be advertising for the spring GIS lab starting in December and in January. And students in this lab receive 2 credits of independent research. We also encourage students to connect with IAC faculty to identify opportunities to conduct applied research in collaboration with partners and that faculty member. In most cases, students will receive support from that faculty member to apply for funding to support their participation in that research. It's a lot of things. Today's session is really focused on this year-long conservation research that runs from January to this year. This program is designed for William & Mary students alongside partners and faculty mentors on all stages of the research process. From the co-design of a project to the actual implementation of the project to the completion and communication of the results. So you have a firsthand experience really looking at engaging in all steps and all phases of a research project. It's a good fit for students of all majors to build professional skills and to explore careers in conservation, since you have about a year of really working alongside partners in a summer where you're actively working almost as a member of your conservation team on an applied project. It's also a really good fit for students who are willing to take on a complex challenge and identify a research project that you can feasibly do that aligns with them. And you'll hear from our panelists, all of these projects evolve significantly throughout the program. And so this is a really good fit for a student that's okay with the unknown and is okay with taking on a challenge like a real world conservation challenge. We're going to talk a little bit more about the structure of the program, the application, and then we'll switch over to our student panel. So students who apply for the year-long program are matched with a project, as well as their partner and their faculty mentor and fellow students in the fall prior to the start of the program. So as I said, the application for 2025 opens up tomorrow. We'll be selecting students in late October and November. If you're selected, you'll be matched with a project and a faculty mentor and a partner. So you'll be coming into the spring semester and into the program with a known project and with your team structure already set. In the spring semester, you'll be working with your partners and faculty mentors to co-design the project. You'll be working on a lit review. You'll get permission and get all of your methods reviewed. For some of you are some of the projects that require working with human subjects that requires going through an IRB review. It involves setting a timeline for what you plan to do over the summer, and you write a written proposal. The proposal is intended to guide you through the research that you will complete full-time over the summer. In that spring semester, you'll register for 2 credits of independent research, and you'll spend about 6 hours a week throughout the spring semester really working on that research proposal. You'll meet weekly with faculty mentors and your conservation mentors as you design the proposal, and you'll also participate in a weekly lab meeting with all of the students in the research program, which is every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. In the summer, you will be working pretty much full-time to complete your research. This means that you'll be working about 30 hours a week over a 10-week period. But the way that you spend those 10 weeks really depends on your project. So when you look at the application and you look at the project descriptions, there's a little bit of information there about the travel requirements, as well as anything you need to know about the schedule. That's sort of the best indicator of how you'll spend your time over the summer. For a lot of students, if they're traveling, they're going to spend more than 30 hours a week while they're traveling on the project, and they might spend less later. Really, the commitment is that everyone works on average about 30 hours a week over 10 weeks students. The IIC gives each student in the program a $4,000 award to support their work on the research over the summer. Additionally, if travel is required for your project, we give you an opportunity to apply for additional funds to support your travel. You also, throughout the summer, will continue to meet regularly with your faculty and conservation mentors, and you'll continue with those weekly lab meetings with the full. In the fall semester, so these students are currently working on in the fall semester of their program, you work on analyzing the results of your summer research, and you produce a written research report, as well as you present your research findings to your partners and to the broader IIC audience. So all of the students are working on some form of written report. The structure of that report depends on what's going to be most useful for the partners. All of the students are going to be giving an oral presentation. So on October 25th, actually, I get to hear them all presenting their findings. And then depending on the project, students are working on other deliverables. It might be a map, site, or something else, depending on. And again, throughout the fall semester, students register for 2 credits of independent research. They continue with those weekly meetings. And they can continue to participate in that weekly lab session. So as I mentioned, the students really are the lead researchers on these projects. And we've committed to these partners that they're going to receive something useful out of this program. So it's imperative that students understand the expectations and are able to commit to these expectations to participate in the program. Students are expected to commit to the full year-long program. So you have to be able to commit to the spring, summer, and fall in order to be accepted in the program. It's your responsibility to make sure that your project continues to meet the needs of your conservation partners. Students are expected to complete the research proposal in the spring, a report in the fall, present the findings in the fall, and complete any deliverables. We expect students to practice self-reflection and commit to cultural sensitivity, humility, and willingness to learn from local communities, from their partners throughout the program. Students are responsible, as I mentioned, for proposing and managing their own travel budgets, as well as the travel itineraries. Students are expected to understand and follow all IIC partner and voluntary policies, to work collaboratively on their interdisciplinary team, and again, to represent themselves in IIC and voluntary in a professional and respectful way. What do the students get out of it? A lot of incredible benefits. One, you receive support from the IIC, from faculty, and from the partners to complete the applied research. This is different than a lot of other research programs on campus where, of course, you have support, but in this case, you all are working as part of a team on a project that has been set by partners. You receive a lot of support from those partners and faculty members throughout the entire process to ensure that that work is, versus say an independent study project, which is great, but students really sort of identify the direction. Students, as I mentioned, receive a $4,000 award that came from our IIC donor to complete the research over the summer, and you have the opportunity to apply for additional support for your travel. You get 2 independent research credits in the spring, 2 independent research credits in the fall. Get experience working on these teams. You build lots of skills, research professional leadership skills. You have an opportunity to contribute to a real-world conservation solution. You get an opportunity to learn about careers. You have an incredible multicultural experience and self-awareness. And you get to learn from an amazing group and build lifelong connections. Who's eligible for this program? This program is open to enrolled William & Mary students, any major or minor. In fact, that's our goal. We aim to reach students with a diversity of major skills and interests and perspectives because we're trying to build this integrated community of students. Since it's a year-long program that starts in the spring and ends in the fall, unfortunately, this program is only open to students who graduate on or after December 2025. So if you're a senior, unfortunately, you're not eligible for the program, but you can apply for the GIS lab or work with faculty and applied research. It is not open to students who have already participated in the program. We're trying to make sure that we're fair and give everyone an opportunity. Students must be eligible to register for 2 credits of independent research, both in the spring and the fall. Because we give students an award over the summer to complete their research full time, students are not allowed to enroll in summer courses. That basically complicates things with how we pay you. So you can't be enrolled in any courses over the summer in order to receive that $40,000. So if you plan to take courses over the summer, this may not be. We need students to be able to commit to the student requirements. Students must be able to travel if their project does require travel. And then, of course, we want students who are committed to integrative and just conservation solutions and who are eligible to receive the award. Travel. So many of the projects do require students to travel to complete the research, but not all of them. In 2025, we have several projects that do not require travel at all and can be done either from Williamsburg or remote. We also have several projects that require domestic travel. So we have a few that where students will be going to Montana and Colorado, and a lot of projects that require travel here in Virginia or region. We also have several projects that require international travel. But the duration, the timing, and the type of travel varies significantly by project. So it's really important when you're reviewing the project descriptions that you review the section on travel and you do your own research on the conditions of those sites and come and meet with them to ask about whether travel is a good fit for you. You'll hear this from our panelists, but we do have projects that have variable conditions. So there are several projects where students are going to be living in more field research conditions. So in tents, with limited resources, hiking on variable terrain, really working in more wilderness settings. Students need to be comfortable with that type of setting. We also have several projects where students are working in multicultural settings, where they're exposed to new food, entirely new culture. They might be staying in hotels, but the hotels are going to be very different from the hotels that you're working at. And they're entirely different sort of things that you need to be. But you have plenty of support. If you sign up for a project that requires travel in the spring semester, the students will be working closely with me and our research program manager and your partners. Come up with a schedule for your research over the summer, as well as a budget for expenses. And you'll propose that budget so that the IIC will provide support for that budget as long as it aligns with IIC policies and regulations. The most important thing I want you to take away from this is that you all are responsible for ensuring that you are prepared for and can complete the travel required for you. So ask lots of questions. Really think about what you're comfortable with and how you can push yourself and where your are. Because we want to make sure that you have a good experience, and we also want to make sure that you search. So how to apply? The application opens tomorrow. And you can access the application through the IIC website. To apply for the program, you need to complete a Qualtrics survey, as well as you need to submit a 3-minute video. And you do that through the Qualtrics survey that you can find on the IIC website. These are the steps we suggest that you take to apply. First, review the program requirements and eligibility. So this recording will be up on the YouTube site, also on our website. We have a list of all the program requirements. Then, and perhaps the most important step is we want you to review all the 2025 project descriptions and identify your top 3 projects that you think are a good fit for you. When you're ready, I want you to complete the Qualtrics application. The Qualtrics application asks for background information. It asks you to reflect on your interest in the program, how you plan to or experience you have working with diverse teams, your experience working on interdisciplinary projects or how you plan to work on interdisciplinary projects, how you would manage your travel and program logistics, what you want to learn about the program, what you want to learn about yourself and through the program, and then the top 3 projects that you would like to be considered for. And then finally, we want you to upload a 3-minute video explaining why you're a good fit. The deadline is October 21st, so you have a lot of time to prepare this application and a lot of time to meet with me and with other students who are in the program to identify if this program really is a good fit for you. When you're looking at the project descriptions, which you can find through the IIC website, I want you to look at the broad project description, but I also want you to identify who the partner organization is and do some research on that partner organization. You have a better understanding of what they do as you're applying for that project. There's a section also that lists the prerequisites and skills required. Depending on the project, some of them have required prereqs and some of them have preferred prereqs. Obviously, if you don't have that prereq and it's required, that might not be the best fit for you. But if there are preferred prereqs or skills that you don't have, still apply and just explain how you would either build those skills or any other experiences that you have that would prepare you for that position. I want you to really look at the travel that's required and think about whether that level of travel is a good fit for you. And then think about why you're a good fit for the program and why you're a good fit for those unique projects. Reflect on your unique skills and perspectives and how you would prepare for that experience. I'm going to give you just a quick overview of the projects we have for 2025, and then we're going to get to our panel. So in 2025, we have 16 projects. Like I said, when you apply, you're going to list your top 3. All of these projects require no travel or domestic travel. And as you can see from the website, there's a diversity of projects. So as you scroll through the list of projects, you'll see that there are really projects for anyone of really any major and a lot of projects that require sort of different levels of travel or field experience. Lots of international ones here. I also learned that today is National Gorilla Day, and there's a project that's working with a partner in Uganda focused on gorillas. So that's exciting. So what are we looking for in the student application? So all the applications are reviewed by our IIC research committee. What we're looking for is a clear commitment, enthusiasm for conservation. Most importantly, we want you to reflect on your own unique skills and perspectives that you bring to the program and to the project. It's okay if you don't have research experience or experience that's relevant for that project. We want you to reflect on other experiences that you have that might prepare you for that program. For example, if you're the oldest sibling, you might have experience managing your younger sibling. If you worked at McDonald's, you certainly had experience working with customers and very diverse audiences. And if you've been on a basketball team, you have experience working on a team and know what it's like to work together and coordinate, especially sometimes when things aren't really working. We're looking for students who have put a lot of thoughtful reflection into the projects that they've listed, an understanding of the program commitments, that have demonstrated humility and gratitude, and obviously the maturity and professionalism to work with partners. On the website, you'll see frequently asked questions, and our panelists will probably reflect on some of these today, but I'm going to quickly go through them. Do I need to be an integrative conservation major, biology, or ENSP major? No. This program is open to students of any major, any minor. If you have summer travel commitments, can I still do the program? It depends. Like I said, you all are committing to a full-time work over the summer. Some of the projects require travel the entire summer or a certain period of time. So if your travel conflicts with that, then no. But if you're on a project that has a little bit more flexibility, you might be able to fit in family trips, some travel, and most of our students have done that. If I don't meet all the prereqs for the project I'm interested in, should I still apply? If they're required, no. If they're preferred, yes. As I mentioned earlier, explain how you might build those skills in your application. Do I need to attend the Friday 2 to 3 p.m. lab in the spring and fall semester? Yes, that's an opportunity for you to work with other students in this VRP program. Can I study abroad and do the program? No, unfortunately. You need to be on campus in the spring and fall semesters, and you need to be here in person spring and fall to participate in this program. If I don't have money to travel or do unpaid research over the summer, can I still participate in this program? Yes, as I said, we give you all an award of $4,000 to cover your expenses over the summer, and then you have an opportunity to apply for additional support to cover your travel expenses. Do I have to commit to the full program? Yes. If I'm a senior, can I apply? No, unfortunately, because it requires that you participate in the spring and the following courses. But there are other opportunities. If you have questions, you can ask me or come to my office hours. As again, the application is on the ISC website. I have office hours every Tuesday from 3 to 5. I'm here in the 5. The ISC also has coffee hours every Friday at 11 a.m. That's a good opportunity to come learn from other students. So the schedule is the application opens tomorrow. The deadline is October 21st. After we get all the student applications, we will reach out to you to schedule interviews. If you are asked to participate in an interview, it doesn't necessarily mean that your application is at the top of the list and somebody who didn't get an interview is at the bottom of the list. Basically, those interviews are meant to try to match you with projects. So we're asking students for interviews if we're wondering about, their travel experience and something related to the project. So if you hear that your friend got an interview but you didn't, don't panic. It's really an opportunity for us to learn a bit more so that we can match you to the right projects. Then in November and December, you'll receive a notification if you were accepted in the program and which project you're matched with. You'll complete paperwork so that you can start the program in January. There are plenty of ways to get involved in the IIC, so I suggest that you sign up for the mailing list. There's a QR code here and in the back. That's a really good way to learn about all the various ways you can get. And now I'm going to turn it over to our 4 current CRP students who are going to reflect on their experiences. All right. So I've asked them, I've come up with a few set questions. Again, I've asked them to be honest about their experience. But at the end, we'll open it up for you all to ask them questions as well, and then we'll wrap up. And when we wrap up, you all will have a chance to ask them individual questions. They volunteered to stay a little bit long. All right. Thank you, panelists, for doing this. I really appreciate it. You probably have seen lots of photos with them throughout the presentation as well. So first, I was hoping that each panelist could introduce themselves. So maybe obviously your name, your major or minor, your year. And then if you don't mind providing a brief description of your conservation research program project and maybe the structure of your team. So Leo, do you mind starting?
Thanks, Erica. Hi, I'm Leo. I'm a senior chemistry major and geology minor. And my project is focused on the development of low-cost water sensors in Madagascar. So my conservation partner is Conservation International. So I work with partners there as well as at William & Mary. So here on campus, I work in the chem department and applied science department. And at CI, I work with a hydrologist based in DC and also another mentor who's based in Singapore. And around in Madagascar, where our area is. We have one more student here at William & Mary in the bio department, and then one intern who is working with us named Michael, based in Madagascar.
Hi, my name is Mads. I'm a senior. I'm a double major in bio and ENSP, and my project is looking at the effectiveness of participatory research methods. So research that combines input from governmental organizations, educational institutions, and NGOs as far as resilience in the face of losing one of those partners. So my work within the Republic of Georgia, which is in the Caucasus. I work with CEN, which is the Caucasus Environmental NGO Network. So they do work Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. That covers pretty much every sector of environmentalism. I worked with them primarily building a participatory research model for forestry mapping in Georgia.
I'm Kaylee. So I'm a senior and I'm double majoring in ENSP and Integrative Conservation. So my project was the road project, specifically trying to mitigate wildlife divergence and the focus. So I'm working with my partner Sophia. So we have two different parts of the project that are very complicated. So together, she basically is doing the ecological dimensions, and I'm doing the dimensions. So we did a camera trap study with 20 cameras at the sites that were previously the last year student researcher because this is the second year. And then she's analyzing all those pictures to narrow it down to one hotspot. And then mine is to bridge the gap between data collection and the information process. So we really want to get fencing next to these certain structure, mitigation structure. And so I'm trying to figure out how do we do that. So we have this data, we actually get it done, and I'm doing that research. And so over the summer,
I'm Kate. I'm a senior and I'm an environmental science and geology double major. My project was based in Nepal, in the Himalayas, and I was looking at the relationship between communities and their pastoralist lifestyles and snow leopard enrichment on like their livestock and the depredation issue there. I was working with Rinzan Lama, who is a snow leopard conservationist, and his team, which involved some older researchers and also undergraduate student researchers from Nepal who were helping us like translate through interviews.
So last spring, I guess starting in January, you met your conservation partners and they explained a real challenge that they have implementing conservation in the areas where they work. And then throughout the spring, you had to then take that challenge and design a feasible research project that you could then complete throughout the summer that helped address that challenge. Can you all reflect on that experience in the spring, really starting with a broad challenge and identifying a question that you could address through the program? And how did you make sure through that process that it continued to meet the needs of maybe this time, Kate, I'll start with you and go backwards.
Sure. So my project is very like ethnographic. So our goal was to create an entire questionnaire from scratch. So in order to start our project, we had to read a lot of literature. Luckily, our advisor had a lot on the subject for the specific region that we were doing our research in. So he sent us something like 20 papers. And a lot of the spring was just reading those papers, seeing what kind of questionnaires that they did, and then finding where the gaps in the research were that we thought that we could expand our project on, see what we could contribute to like the body of knowledge on the human wildlife conflict. So we did a lot of reading, and then over the spring, we were able to develop our questionnaire that we would be bringing to the field. We started with almost 100 questions on that questionnaire, and then over time, like narrowed it down to 35. What was most important for balancing the needs of our advisor was just like being in constant communication, getting a lot of feedback, and having like regular meetings every week was pretty important. So I would say you have to like commit a lot of time in the proposal stage to develop your project so that you can best prepare yourself over the summer. So it makes the summer a lot easier by like doing all the work and really getting all those hours in for the 2 credits in spring.
So my partner, which I forgot to mention, so we're partnered with a district biologist, Jordan, with wildlife resources. And so he was our partner, and I guess specifically for my part, when we first started, obviously, you can understand it's make the process. It's pretty obvious, like you need funding, you need the local government, you need the community. But then it was quite a process to figure out how exactly I should display that data, especially since there are a lot of different ways to do it, and I wanted to be most beneficial to Jordan and specifically something to use actually get a sense of the benefit. But one way we made sure that it was what we wanted is we met every single week. We texted, we did random phone calls. We did like this constantly. We just double check all of our so when I came up with my interview questions, we double checked all of them. I did the frameworks, he checked it. So we really ran everything first and to make sure it was, and then just.
Yeah, so my project was a little different in that because SEN is an NGO network and they work broadly on a lot of environmental challenges, there wasn't necessarily like a preset problem that I was coming in to address. It was kind of an array of things that my direct partner who I was working with at SEN was working on. And so it was a lot of just finding where my skills and his work were aligned so that I could best benefit them in the ways that I could in the short time that I was there. And I think something that's also really important, especially if you're doing an international project, is using your faculty mentor here at William & Mary for the resource that they are. I didn't really know much about Georgia going into this, and I'm sure most of you probably don't either. It's not a region of the world we really learn about. But my faculty mentor here, Daniel Moliniak, has been doing work in the country for like 5-6 years at this point, I think. And so he has a lot of knowledge, and just bouncing ideas off of him, and like Kaylee and we have both stressed, just keeping in constant communication with your partner so you can make sure that not only does everyone understand where you are and what your goals are, but where you're going. Especially when you have a lot of changes. I actually went into this working on a completely different project. And then when I got to Georgia, the Georgian government had just signed a law that completely collapsed what I was supposed to be working on. So I like on the ground had to figure out what I was going to do. And it wasn't that easy, but you know, it's a cool thing now.
So my project was a continuation of work that had been done the previous year. So a lot of my work in the spring kind of involved figuring out where do we go from here. It's all I inherited from, we got something like a Zotero library with 150 papers they had collected over the year and their water sensor that they had built. So it took a lot of time, like Pat said, figuring out cultural context of our work, but also, okay, we have this, what do we do now? So it took definitely weeks of meetings with faculty mentors and our conservation partners to figure out exactly how we could best.
I forgot to mention that we have several projects, 5 CRP that are continued projects from. So students looking for those projects, you have the ability of having past students who are working on the projects there as well. All right, so after working on a proposal in the spring, you all then worked on your projects full time over the summer. I know you all had very different summers. I'm hoping you can reflect a little bit on what the summer of research looked like for each of you. I'm starting with you.
Yeah, so my role in the project for the water sensors was kind of leading the general development and also the data analysis of our work. So for our project, everything was very hands-on, in person the whole time, with faculty mentors and our conservation partners. So we worked in various stages based on our proposal, which we had drawn up in the spring, of first kind of designing, testing, and analyzing. Things kind of blended together, but luckily we were able to mostly go off that schedule we had set out.
So over the summer, I was kind of a mix of doing my own research, but also just working at and for SEN over the time that I was there. I spent the entire summer in Georgia. So a lot of my work involved GIS sensing, doing forestry mapping, attending meetings. As a side effect of being the only native English speaker in the office, I was often also the one vetting proposals because we did a lot of work with international donors from the EU and from the United States. And then just in working on my own project, I kind of, just did observational studies and did a lot of lit review while I was there. But also just talking to people that are working in the office, that are on the ground, that are experiencing these challenges. I think that you can learn a lot just by talking to people and letting them be honest with you, and then that can kind of drive the direction that you're looking at as well.
So for our project, we spent about a month, so we did 4 separate trips from the beginning to the middle and then the end. And so while we were up there, my partner set up the cameras and measurements. And it was actually really fun going out into the field and under fences. It's a lot of fun. And then we also did interviews, so that interviews with community members, members on the board of supervisors, like the planning commission, different aspects, and then and then after that we would transcribe the audio recordings. And then with me primarily, I was constantly in communication with people interviewing, and then it kind of progressed. Even in the summer, I would get references and then have to add them to my interview list, and then I worked on that the whole summer, and then color coding.
Last summer, most of my research was the month that I spent in Nepal. So we traveled over there right after finals, and normal day was pretty much going out into the field to conduct our questionnaire. We had a team of we were with one of our faculty members, Sapana Lohani, here at the IIC, along with our partner from Nepal and the students from Nepal. So we would go out into the field and we'd have 2 separate teams. We pretty much walk around the main villages and knock on people's doors and ask if we could interview them. And most of the time they said yes. And we would sit down with them for about 45 minutes. And our student translators would conduct the interview and translate back to us in real time. It was a really cool experience. So it got to share a lot of milk tea with strangers, do a lot of walking between villages.
Can you reflect on a challenge that you faced and then how you overcame that challenge through this year?
I can start. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, when I was traveling to Georgia, it was right after finals, just like Kate mentioned. There was a lot of political turmoil happening in the country over a very contested law. And that being signed into effect, not only did it have ramifications for my project and the work that I was doing, as well as the work that SEN does generally within the country, but it also just created a culture of unrest in the city that I was living in Tbilisi, which is the capital of Georgia. So finding ways to kind of mitigate that, both in the professional aspect of it and in the personal aspect of it while you're living in the place, was something that I think took a bit of time to balance. I think the thing that's most important is, like everyone has been continuing saying, is just to be in constant communication, both with your faculty mentor and with the partners that you're working with that are on the ground, that are often from these countries, that understand these cultures way better than any of us ever could. I think navigating it was difficult, of course, but I think it also gave me a lot of really, really valuable insight into what would eventually drive my final project. And so it was actually a really, I don't want to say wonderful, but interesting experience. And
Any other challenge?
I guess I can talk about mine. I'm kind of currently in it right now. But as we talked about earlier, your objectives are constantly going to change. So when I first drafted my interview questions, they were specifically fit objectives in the spring, and my objectives didn't change that much, but I realized now, even since my objectives slightly changed, the interview questions left some gaps. So now that I'm going through all of my data and trying to, make the chart and the connections between the different actors that I interview and relationships, there are some gaps in knowledge that I wish I would have, and so I could have asked them in the interview. So I'm trying to figure out those gaps in knowledge now. But the good thing is, when I was doing the interviews, I always followed up with, hey, is it okay if I ask you follow-up questions? So I always I never sever the link between an interview. So it's good that I can go back and email them or set up another meeting. And then there are also other case studies that I can look at to kind of.
The main challenges that team faced was having two separate teams going out to do our interviews. So I was on one, and then Liam, who is my William and Mary student partner, was doing the other interviews with another translator. And we realized about halfway through doing our interviews that sometimes we were asking questions slightly differently and getting very different responses. So when we went back to compare the responses, there were some things that we realized we need to clarify with our translators on how to be asking the questions. So that's something that we adjusted, but it did mean that it kind of compromised some of the like viability of our questions results, but that's just kind of like a reality of research, especially when you're working with people. It's definitely creates honestly just like more nuance for like our end manuscript that we're going to be writing. I think that's just something that you kind of can't prepare for, especially working in kind of an international observation.
Definitely echo that communication and logistics were definitely expected challenges throughout the summer. I give an anecdote of Michael, the Malagasy intern I was working with in Williamsburg for about a month over the summer. It was the first time outside of the country, so traveling halfway around the world, out at the airport to pick him up, and we find out that his phone was dying. It just wasn't charging anymore, and he was landing in the U.S. Last bit of battery to call me so we can find each other. But in this new country, no phone, I have to drop him off at his dorm, and all he has is his laptop with email, and he's connected to the William Mary Wi-Fi. He was living in Landrum, but that was definitely a challenge we had to work through. Expected of having to figure out, okay, how do we communicate with him while he's here? How can we get him a new phone, a cell service, and everything? It definitely taught me that throughout this process, you have to be flexible.
That's a good point, especially for the international projects in the spring and fall semesters when you're meeting regularly with those partners. Obviously, given time differences, sometimes those meetings happen at strange times. What was it like working with conservation partners and faculty? Next, can you reflect a little bit?
Sure. My advisors were really fantastic. Were like extremely willing to meet with us anytime that we needed to, and I think that I was really lucky for that. Every project's gonna be completely different. Like a lot of advisors are busier or more available than others, so you kind of just have to have a completely open line of communication with them. But yeah, it was really wonderful to just get to like have like our weekly meetings and touch base with not only Rinzin, who was our Nepal partner, but also Sapana, who is an IIC mentor, and we also brought in Fernando, who is also with the IIC. So there's always people willing to help, and like Erica is someone who like I consult often, always has like lots of ideas.
So, and then Jordan Green, psychologist, and then obviously my friends. And working with Professor Spottle was great. He was able to meet one-on-one if we ever needed help with anything. He was always available through email. He did take a vacation to the UK, so he was a little more time then, but it was great working with him, and he's definitely willing to help out separately. It's just the weekly things. And then with Jordan, it was phenomenal getting to work with him. He's a great conservation partner. He is really available whenever we needed him, even if we just had to do it quick. He would answer any questions we had, especially in the field, and he was very supportive. And one thing about Jordan, he's super enthusiastic about our research, so he's definitely helping us network to extending this to the outside of just like the IIC and the department. So he wants us to our conferences, and so he's been really encouraging with research, which has become super enthusiastic about it as well. And I guess the part about the sure, it definitely took a little bit of time to get used to that role. Just working under a professor and then having them lead. I know in the first thing, semester we had to lead the meeting, and I was like, oh, But it takes time, but then you get used to it and it's actually really fun being able to kind of make decisions on your own and run by them, but it's primarily everything you come up with. That's just getting, I guess it's supervised by your mentors, which is it's really fun.
Echoing what Kaylee said, we like had our first meeting in the spring and everyone was just silent and it kind of dawned on me that I was the one that was supposed to start everything. I think it takes some adjusting and getting used to, but once you kind of get in the groove of you are in charge and it's your responsibility to make sure that everyone understands their role within your project, it gets a lot easier. My faculty mentor, Professor Miliak, was lovely. He is always available to talk. He'll try to answer your emails. I think something that's important to understand is that, you know, they do have their own lives. So sometimes you have to give them ample time to respond. But outside of that, it was lovely. And all of my partners that I worked with in Sen, were super welcoming. It was difficult when I was in the United States just because they're 7 hours ahead. So like trying to find a time to meet that fit within their working day schedule was a little difficult because Georgia is very European in the way that they work for a certain amount of time and then they do not work for the rest of the day. So that was a little difficult, but once you're on the ground, it's much easier. Yeah, overall, it was a really lovely experience, and everyone that I met was genuinely so kind and welcoming and willing to help, which was great to have and definitely made things on my end to kind of assume that role of.
I agree. It was definitely a new experience being the lead researcher on a project. For us, we had 5 faculty and conservation mentors. So that meant every time I send out like an Outlook calendar invite, I'll get like a barrage of out of office emails or, oh, I can never make this before 9 a.m. or, oh, sounds great. Okay, I'll be there. So it's a bit of an adjustment trying to figure out how to handle all this logistics. But everyone who's signed on to this project, all the mentors, all the partners are there because they want to be there. They've all committed to this project. The conservation partners are the ones who they're all invested. Even if it a bit of a challenge to get a hold of them.
I ask one of you to reflect on time commitment and how you balance this program with your other classes and everything.
So like I said, my project was a little different in that I had slightly less structure than a lot of other people. So I actually had a bit of a difficult time figuring out how to adjust, especially as we got closer to travel, because I was responsible for managing my own budget, which is different than most of the other CRP projects. So I think really the best advice that I can give is just kind of treat it like a class. You have deadlines that you know when things are going to be due. You just need to make an active effort to set aside time throughout your week to work on these projects like you would work. Because even though no one is, you know, your professor and checking in on you and monitoring you, the more that you stick to your deadlines and just kind of establish a working schedule to yourself, it makes things easier. You get into the groove of doing it. It gives you a reason to regularly interact with your faculty mentors and with your partners and with your work. And it just kind of keeps you constantly moving. That way you never have one of those things where you realize that you have to do an entire report or something in one night because it's the next day.
2 more questions that I'm gonna ask them also, and it'll open up to all of you. What have you learned about yourself through this book? And then maybe we'll combine them. What have you learned about yourself? And then second, what do you wish you had known about the program? Please, start with you. Yeah.
Sure. Like the summer was incredibly instrumental in helping me decide like where I want to go with my future career. Definitely. International conservation experience was totally invaluable. It was incredible to see just like the opposite side of the world, like what conservation looks like, and what like it's like to like an academic researcher. Like in Nepal, I learned the most honestly from like the other students that I was working with my Nepali advisor. Just all the time that I wasn't actually doing interviews was when we were talking and they were telling me about how they live, the things that they are working on in school. That was really, really incredible. And I don't want to continue to do international research. I would like to focus more like domestically, but I do know now that I want to work with that kind of research team where I'm working with people of all sorts of different backgrounds to work a specific project. So I think that the CRP can be a really good opportunity for you to kind of explore like what career path you want. It's not another like school project, like this is like you are getting a serious real world experience working with an organization. And like you definitely have to treat it as such and you can get so much out of it.
Why do you wish you had known a year ago?
So I guess similar to what Kate said, it really helped me figure out exactly. Obviously, I knew I wanted and studies, but our project was really great because we had the ecological dimension and the human political dimension. So got to work on both research and field studies, and also doing interviews and understanding the decision and the side of things. And I really like the science side. I like being in the field. I like being outside. So it really helped me actually get experience, work with both sides of it, and pick which one I like more. So definitely helped me in that regard. And then I guess something I wish I had known. I guess two things is be really spontaneous and definitely treat it like a class. At the same time, the things you can't really prepare for, especially sometimes like the time commitment or certain things will pop up. And things you don't really expect. It like over the summer, I like people for interviews and like some guy just like called me randomly and started basically I had to like interview him spontaneously over the phone because he just kept asking me what my questions were. And I wasn't prepared. I didn't prepare questions for him yet. And I was like, oh my goodness. But so definitely prepare for unexpected things like that. And then also, I guess project and it can be more than just one project. I know our partner we're getting to work with him, and he's so excited about this project. Like I said, we want to do conferences this spring. We offered to write us reference letters in our career, and then he also invited us to do a deer head lab with the Department of Wildlife Resources, which is not related to our project, but it's just separate. So it's outside of the research project. Amazing opportunity that he's helped us. So that's been so yeah. So hunters, especially with like chronic wasting disease, so hunters can the deer they can send the lab, the head off to the lab and they'll test it for any disease and they'll send the results back to the hunters to see what they want to do with the meat. And they volunteer. So Jordan invited us, so Sophia and I can do that in like November, it's a cool lab experience. So
what's with the theme of your project? The road.
yeah, I mean technically. Yeah. I think like everyone else has said so far, it definitely helped me narrow down the spectrum of what I wanted to do in my professional life. I mean, we're all about to graduate, so I think it's probably on everybody's mind as well. But getting to work more with like working with an NGO and seeing what that is like day to day, but also working with more of the political and policy and government spectrum of the environmental science division. I've always been like a very hard science person, but this summer I was forced to work with like more of the legal aspects of it. And I actually really enjoy it. And I think that it's something that I will continue to do in the future. I think additionally, something that this project has taught me is just to like say yes to things when you can. So many great experiences I had this summer, like trips I took, people I met, just experiences that, maybe I wouldn't have taken before, but just pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and understanding that you're here to do something new and experience all of these things. And it's really what you make of it. So just kind of, committing to just go full into it. I think the best thing. What I wish I would have known. I think just like the flexibility that's necessary. I mean, Erica said it a million times. We've all said it a million times. It's spontaneous. You need to be flexible. But I think I didn't have a true grasp for understanding of the level that meant until I was in there. Like you truly have to prepare to just drop everything at any given moment and completely change what you're doing and just be okay with that. Which for like a type A person like me is not always the easiest, but you get things out of it and you learn how to adapt and it's worth it.
So for me, I was in a chem lab before starting the CRP. I didn't really have any interaction with the ISC or ENSP or anything before, so being in the CRP really kind of opened my eyes to what conservation means and what new research can look like. So that was all very new for me. And I'm really glad I got that experience. In terms of what I wish I had known is even if you're like on a project by yourself, there are so many people that are there to support you. Everything is very interdisciplinary, which is something else that was new for me and that I really ended up enjoying. There are so many elements that you just can't do this all by yourself. You'd be willing to step out of your comfort zone and make it.
Note, I asked Leo's conservation partner from Madagascar, Michael, he wished he would have known. He had said, which is so sweet, he didn't know that he would find some of his best friends. It's really sweet.
Yeah, what I wish I had known, reflecting on it, like, probably, I wish I had known to get involved with the IIC sooner. Not just through the CRP, like, the coffee hours on Fridays at 11 a.m. 11 a.m.
11 a.m. Fridays.
Meet different faculty members, meet other students, talk to them, get involved with the conservation GIS labs. All those experiences are really, really important to prepare you for a project like the CRP. I applied for the CRP my first year. I think when I was a sophomore, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wasn't even like, I hadn't even declared my majors. And I'm honestly very thankful that I didn't do the CRP project. I wasn't accepted that year because I had then a whole other year to gain more experience. So I would just say be really careful when you're applying. I encourage everyone to apply just for the experience of applying, but make sure when you're choosing your projects that you want to apply for, it's not just a project that sounds cool, but one that really like caters to your skills or will help you develop skills that you might want for a future job or just to have in life.
Questions you all have for
So as in addition to ranking the top three, what other avenues, opportunities are there to choose between different projects? Because again, it's proposed by somebody else, and your experience with being able to pick something that you were passionate about or that you would.
I would say advisors for projects, like while you're applying to them, I would say talk with them more about like what the project might look like, because a lot of times the descriptions of the projects are like a very vague overview, but you can have ideas relating to one project, talking with them and seeing if what your interests are, I think that will align with the project and like conservation organization goals, like that could be useful. And then I think like also when you're in the interview stage, you do have the opportunity to really advocate for yourself on a certain project if you really want that.
Yeah, I'll say I actually did not end up joining any of the top 3 projects that I ranked on my application. So I would say the interview is really the time where you want to ask those questions and figure out if it's the right fit for me. Does this meet skill set? Does this kind of help me in it could look a little different.
And we do our best to match you with projects, but we also are considering you for other projects. We might know something about that project in the park. It's super clear from the description, so we might interview you for another project with experience. You can always come to my office hours every Tuesday from 3 to 5 or Friday coffee. And because I've been involved in so I know at least the price level expect, and then I can direct you to.
Something that's also important to remember is that while your partners are proposing a specific conservation challenge, they're not proposing the way that you at it, you know, like you and your faculty mentor have a lot of say about how you decide to address your specific problem. So you can really find ways in that to cater to your specific skill set, the things you want to do, or the things that you learn from your mentor or from your partner in order to get the most out of the project for yourself, but also be able to deliver the best product at the end.
You all kind of briefly just touched on it, but since you're all seniors, would you all think or agree that it was more beneficial for you to do it later on in your?
I think definitely, I think if I had done it a year prior that I don't think I would have gotten the same things out of it. I say like getting involved with the ISC is always a good idea in any capacity. And I do know like there are definitely, I think we have like a sophomore in our program, like definitely people, lots of juniors as well. So it's definitely possible that it will be like a good fit. I think also when they're doing the interviews, like they will kind of, or like the people, the faculty will also be able to tell if like you're kind of ready for that project or not.
Yeah, we do have. Who are sophomores, so they started as freshmen. And I think they've had. I think they've had an amazing experience, but it's been. An experience that it's really helped. Like, so some of them are taking classes that relate to that project, some of them are like, I don't want. I'm gonna take this major. So it just kind of depends on the stage and what you want to get out of it. Here you have. Your major. Earlier, I shaped it. It's open to everyone. Regardless of year, except for seniors and. So our panelists have volunteered to stick around if you would want to ask them questions individually. Also, they volunteered to help address your questions. We have